Hi, this is Dan. Welcome to Weld Fever. Do you hate stick welding? Well, I know many people that do, and I think it's because they just didn't learn the fundamentals correctly. On today's episode, we're going to go ahead and tackle those fundamentals and hopefully get you to enjoy stick welding rather than dreading it. Stick with me. Here we go. Brought to you by Welding Certification Center, an elite welding school focused on training welders to industry standards, leading to on-site certification in as little as 16 and a half weeks part-time and 5 weeks full-time. Visit train2weld.com for more information on how you can register at the premier welding school training the best welders in the USA. Okay, to start things off, I think we'll discuss the actual stick electrode itself. Now, this is a 6013 stick electrode, which denotes it right there. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. Hopefully the camera, the focus is good. You'll notice on the very tip here, but the metal is actually exposed. And that's important. If there's no exposed metal on the tip, you can't ever expect for this thing to light up. On the outside here is a flux coating. Now, this flux coating serves several purposes, and I'm not going to get in depth about this here because I don't think everybody necessarily wants to know that. But if you're interested in this flux coating and what's in it, make a comment and I'll go ahead and respond to that comment. If I get enough interest and enough comments, and perhaps maybe I'll make some kind of a PDF that I can put on my website and you guys can download information on what's in this stuff, the composition and what it's all about. Of course, that'll be for free. But yeah, just make a comment to that. I'd appreciate it. And of course, if you can like this video, I'd appreciate that too. And subscribe if you're not a subscriber already. In terms of the flux coating, it does many things, but one of the things it does is it protects against contamination. When the metal you're welding on, in this case steel, gets up to a certain temperature, and in this case around 1600 degrees Fahrenheit, we see a chemical reaction occur. And what's going on is that the actual steel starts to oxidize. It starts to go through a process of what we call rapid oxidation. And the oxygen in the air that we breathe starts breaking it down. It puts it on rust on steroids. Now, when we're oxy-fuel cutting, we want that to happen. And in fact, we introduce high purity oxygen to make that process happen. But when we're welding, we want to guard against it. So in order to do so, we need to shield the area from the oxygen in the air so that the contamination does not occur. How does that happen? Well, this flux coating burns, and as it burns, it emits a little cloud of CO2, which surrounds the molten welding pool and keeps the oxygen in the air from getting in there and penetrating and thus contaminating the weld. In addition to that, what's in the flux coating here deposits into the weld, and the heat of the weld causes a slag to rise to the surface and coat the weld in a hard substance that prevents oxygen from getting through and gives the weld enough time to cool before exposed to the air. That's why as soon as you weld, you can't just right away break that break that slag off. You need to let it cool first. You don't want to start chipping it when it's still red hot. You want to make sure it cools down. I think the manufacturers recommend around 2 minutes of cooling time, and I know most people don't do that. In fact, most people don't even wait for it to go from cherry red down to, regular steel color. But anyway, that's what you're supposed to do. Okay, let's briefly talk about, and I mean briefly talk about, the equipment you're going to need to actually perform these welds. First of all, you need a helmet, right? Obviously, any kind of helmet will work. So long as it gets to at least a shade 10, you want at least a shade 10 when it comes to welding. I wouldn't suggest much less than a shade 10 for stick welding. And anything more than that, you don't want to go too dark because then it's hard to see and you can't really weld very well. So, obviously everybody's eyes are different. So if you're on a shade 10 and after you're done welding, you're still seeing stars, then clearly you need it a little bit darker. And if you're on a shade 11 or a 12 and you can't see anything, you might need to bring it down a little lighter. So you'll have to play around with that and also check your manufacturer's details on the manual that comes with your helmet. Next, you need some gloves. Don't make the mistake that I see all the time of using the wrong kind of gloves. I see people welding with TIG gloves or MIG gloves or worse, regular working gloves, the kind of leather gloves that you use for work, or worse even still, cloth gardening gloves or something like that. No, those are not intended for welding. You will hurt yourself. You will get burned if you use those eventually, and they will catch on fire. Anything that's not meant for welding will eventually catch on fire, and that can be bad, so don't do it. The next thing you're going to need is you're going to need a brush, and this brush you're going to need for actually brushing off slag, and more importantly, you're going to need a chipping hammer. Okay, now this particular chipping hammer is probably the best chipping hammer I've ever used in my life, and I've used many of them, trust me. This one has stood the test of time. I've bought several of them because unfortunately I've either lost them or I've actually worn them down, but this is the greatest chipping hammer made in the USA. I'll have a link to this in the description if you're interested, but yeah, this is a great chipping hammer. Finally, you're going to need some kind of a welding jacket. I have this type of welding jacket here. It should be an actual welding jacket. Should be made out of either cotton or leather, and it should be, you know, fire rated. You don't want to just put on whatever when you're stick welding. This process gets very hot. There's a lot of sparks that fly. And if you're wearing the wrong thing, especially if it's some kind of synthetic material like a polyester, that can really cause you some harm. So don't do it. Last but not least, you are going to need an electrode holder. Now this particular electrode holder is the clamp type. Basically you open the clamp as so. I don't know if you can see this on camera, but there's some grooves in there. Maybe you can kind of see it. Yeah, there we go. And in those grooves you basically affix the electrode. And there is a 90-degree groove. There's also a 45-degree groove like this so that you can go in at an angle. And you can also, there's a groove at the top, so if you need to do overhead in this fashion like this. There is a different type of electrode holder out there. It's a kind of a screw-on type. That particular type of electrode holder is not common in my geographic area of the United States, but I know in other parts it's preferred. But around these parts in Southern California where I'm from, this is pretty much what you see out there in the industry. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to you exactly how we start up a stick electrode. And before we actually start it though, I'm going to just go over the process because frankly, this is what gets the most people. Starting up a stick electrode is the most challenging thing at first, and most people give up right away because they find that they stick all over the place and they have a very difficult time and it frustrates them, and that's the end of it. They don't go any further with stick welding, and it's a shame because it's a very simple thing to overcome. So let me show you. So first of all, we're going to stick the stick electrode into a groove, put it at 90 degrees, and mind you, this electrode holder is not connected to a machine, okay? So don't connect it to the machine when you're doing this, but we're going to practice. We're going to practice coming down here, and let me tilt the camera down so that you can see where I'm at here. All right, and here's a plate. Now on this particular plate here, I'm going to show you there's really two methods, okay, of doing this. And I recommend always that you kind of like put an elbow or something on the table to brace yourself, because it's important to steady yourself when you're welding. I also recommend that your elbow holding side is also holding your other hand here that's holding the electrode holder. That way, and if you notice how I got it here, that way it steadies yourself further. I wouldn't recommend just kind of without an arm, just one arming it like this. People try doing this all the time, especially at the beginning. It doesn't work out very well. So anyway, steady yourself with both hands and an elbow down, and notice how I'm mostly 90 degrees to this plate here of steel, mostly 90 degrees. That's important. You don't want to be like this. You don't want to be like this even. You want to be almost 90 degrees. Here's 90. I'd say cock back about 10 to 15 degrees maximum. Okay, but I like to stay around 90. And there's really two methods for doing this, okay? There's either a scratch or a tap. But whichever you choose, the minute you scratch, you have to scratch and come out quickly. Scratch and come out quickly. So you're going to scratch the surface of the plate and lift up and stay about 1/8 of an inch away from the deck. Scratch and lift up. Scratch and lift up. So for a real close-up shot here, this is how we scratch and lift up. Scratch and lift. Scratch and lift. But it has to be quick, like that. If you slowly scratch like I'm demonstrating, you're going to get stuck. This electrode will get stuck to the plate, and that'll be the end of it, and you'll be frustrated. So it's quick, quick, like striking a match. Quick, quick. The other method is to tap. It's a quick tap and up, and you're up, and I'm not talking about you're up like here. It's tap and keep it low, about 1/8 of an inch maximum. Tap, tap, or tap. And that's it. That's the secret to starting this thing up. Now, right now, in just a second, we're going to actually go to it and do it live. Let's see how we do. Okay, so here we go. Forgive the sound on this one. We're going to start with a few scratch starts, okay? Just a few scratch starts. Remember, it's going to be tap and lift, tap and lift. And as soon as we lift up, I'm going to hold for a second or two, and then I'm going to extinguish by just rapidly flicking. By flicking, I flick out and I'll extinguish the arc. So watch how this goes. Here we go. Ready? So here we go. Scratch, hold, flick. 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 Everybody get that? All right, I hope so. Let's try a couple of taps now. I'm just going to tap real fast. Tap and hold and keep it tight, and then flick out. Here we go. Tap, hold, flick. 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 Maybe for a second or two. Tap, 1, 2, 3, flick. Tap, 1, 2, 3, flick. And that's basically it. The next thing we're going to do in order to progress in our skills is to weld some buttons, or what I refer to as buttons. Now, you're looking at an American quarter here, and the reason I'm showing it is because this is basically the size of the button that we're going to weld, or at least what we're going to shoot for. And if you'll notice, a quarter is just a little bit shy of 1 inch in diameter. And for our metric friends out there, that would be just shy of about 25 millimeters. Now, the way we're going to execute this button is we're going to take our electrode and we're going to scratch start, either scratch start or tap start. And then we're slowly going to make a circle. And of course, it's going to be hopefully about the size of a quarter like we talked about. So here we go. Let me put this quarter back. We're going to strike and we're going to make a circle around the size of a quarter, the perimeter or the diameter will be about the size of a quarter. We're going to go around nice and slowly and deliberately, keeping the electrode really tight to the deck. And then once we get to the starting point, we're going to actually come in a little bit and overlap our previous circumference or bead. And we're slowly going to spiral in this fashion until we get to the center. And when we get to the center, we're going to hold for a few seconds, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to whip out to extinguish, just like that. To further demonstrate it, we're going to take, I'll get a little piece of soapstone here. And mind you, we use soapstone when we weld. We don't use Sharpie or markers or anything else. We use soapstone, and the reason why is because soapstone does not contaminate welds. Sharpies and other markers and things like that do contaminate welds, so use soapstone. It's proven. Anyhow, we're going to strike and we're going to slowly go around the perimeter. When we meet up, we're going to slightly go inward of it and continue all the way around, spiraling into the middle. And then when we get to the middle, we're going to stop, count to 3 or 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and come out quickly and smartly. And that's basically how we're going to produce this button type of a weld. All right, let's give buttons a try. Now obviously we want to let this cool down. If it's cherry red like that, we definitely don't want to go into it. So we want to make sure that everything is as it should be. I'm going to see about closing it, getting a little bit of a close-up here. All right. Okay, we're going to chip this slag. And even though, well, let's get this focus going. Even though this is a chipping hammer, as they call it, it's not meant to be hit hard. You don't want to hit this hard, okay? You really want to make sure that this just lightly taps. Lightly taps. Let me get this in camera focus here. Okay, lightly taps. So like this. Boom. See that? Lightly tap. And if your slag comes off that easy, that's a blessing. That means you welded it okay. Actually, funny enough, and I'm going to now brush this because that's part of the procedure. Funny enough, that's kind of a part of everything. You know, and let me pan back a little bit because this thing doesn't want to focus too well. There we go. Maybe just bring in a little bit more. There we go. Now take a look at these guys here. They're like we want them. We want them to be around the shape of a quarter, which they are, as round as humanly possible. Obviously, perfection is hard to strive for when you're just kind of freehanding it. And more importantly, in the center has to be filled. It'd be even better if it was a little dome-shaped. But it got a little hot for this 1/4-inch material, so it didn't really, you know, stay that way. Either way, in either case, it's good enough, because as long as there's not a crater or a divot in there, that would be a problem. Now here on the edge we got a little bit of, like, I guess I should have gone over this edge a little bit more, because we got a little bit of a, oh, it's not quite a slag inclusion, but it's like a miss over here. But the rest of it is fine. The edges are tight, which means the fusion has happened, and that's a good thing. So this is what we're after. This is what you should be after. And once you can start doing this consistently, then you're ready for the next step, which is actual laying down some beats. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. On the next episode, we're going to continue this trend with additional welding that's going to enhance your skills. I know it's a little slow going, but trust me, if you want to learn this correctly, you got to be able to crawl before you can walk, and walk before you can run. Anyhow, hey, do me a favor, and if you have any questions, please put them in the comments. If there are any particular videos or any particular subjects about welding that you'd like me to cover, make sure to do that too. Also, take a look at my website. If you'll notice here, you can go on there and request whatever you want to see. In addition to, you can buy some gear and merchandise and all that other good stuff. So thanks a lot. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.